this lesson, we'll take a look at the Outlook web app behavior for users in the Brisbane location. I'm logged on here to a PC in the Sydney location, which is the main site of the network. And I'm currently logged on with this user, Alan Reed. So he's got Outlook working with no issues. And what I'm going to do is just go to mail.exchangeserverpro.net/OWA, which is the URL for Outlook web app on this network. So I'll log in, and OWA is working for Alan. Now Alan's mailbox is located in the Sydney site, and mail.exchangeserverpro.net is a DNS record that resolves to the load balance client access servers, also in the Sydney site. So next, let's take a look at what happens when we try to do the same thing from a computer in the Brisbane site. So once again, I'll go to mail.exchangeserverpro.net/OWA. That logon form loads with no issues. I'll log on with Adam Woolley, who is one of our Brisbane users, whose mailbox was moved to the Brisbane server. And instead of a successful logon, we get this error message that Outlook web app isn't available. So now let's see what happens if we go directly to the Brisbane Exchange server for Adam's OWA logon. So we get this logon form again. It's telling me I need to log on with a domain/username format. So I'll use the NetBoss domain name, adam.woolley. And because this is the first logon, I get prompted to select my time zone. This didn't happen the first time around. And this time it works successfully. So Adam Woolley in the Brisbane site is able to access OWA only if he goes directly to the Brisbane server in his web browser, and not via the mail.exchangeserverpro.net URL that Sydney users are able to use for OWA access. So the issue at play here is that the authentication settings for OWA on the Brisbane server are not set correctly for what is known as a CAS-CAS proxy scenario, which is what should be happening when we have clients connecting to the Sydney Exchange servers for OWA and having those connections proxy to other sites such as Brisbane. And I'll show you those authentication settings now. So here is my Brisbane Exchange server, BNE EX1, and here's the Outlook web app virtual directory. Let's have a look at the properties. As you can see here, the authentication is set to use forms-based authentication, which is the default setting. But when the Sydney client access server tries to proxy the connection to the Brisbane client access server, it's not going to use forms-based authentication. It wants to do server-to-server authentication, or in other words, it wants to do integrated Windows authentication. So for sites such as Brisbane that are not the internet-facing site, where people are connecting with that generic mail.exchangeserverpro.net, we actually need to change these authentication settings to support that CAS-to-CAS proxy communication. So we use one or more standard authentication methods and make sure that integrated Windows authentication is selected, and we apply that change. Now we do get this warning here that for the configuration change to take effect, that IIS must be restarted. Before we go ahead and restart IIS, I also want to modify the Exchange Control Panel authentication settings, because they need to be kept consistent with the OWA virtual directory authentication settings. So just changing that once again to use integrated Windows authentication. Apply that change, we get the same warning about restarting IIS. So open up a PowerShell and just type in IIS reset / force as the dialog box suggested. Sorry, that's no force. And if for some reason the IIS reset doesn't work with the no force switch, just try it again without the no force switch. That restart is now successful, so just be aware. I mean, this is a test lab, you can do that straight away, but just be aware that in a production environment, resetting IIS in that manner would disconnect any existing connections by clients to OWA and ActiveSync. So you may need to schedule that to occur at a time that would least impact those types of users. So let's go back to Adam Woolley's computer, and we'll just try that connection to mail.exchangeserverpro.net. So again, connecting to the Sydney client access server and logging in. And this time his mailbox loads. So that CAS-CAS proxy connection in this case was successful. As far as Adam is concerned, he's still connecting to mail.exchangeserverpro.net. So using that single namespace no matter which site the person is located in. And then CAS-CAS proxying takes care of the rest. It will proxy that connection from Sydney to whichever other branch office location is required to access that mailbox.